Good morning.
Good morning.
How you feeling today?
I feel good.
You feel good.
I feel energized.
Hi, I'm Jordyn.
And I'm Sara, and we're both successful serial entrepreneurs who believe the world is way better with more. More women-owned businesses, more wealth, more magic, and more champagne. But before we can add more, we need to return old business ideas that are taking up too much space in our lives.
Enter the Refund, our content series for folks who are looking to return old storylines, concepts, and habits that no longer serve their life and business. Each episode, we're going to cover one topic, share 3 key takeaways, and we're going to receive a refund on what is no longer fitting the bill. # no receipts required.
Listen and watch The Refund on YouTube and wherever you love to listen to podcasts. What are we talking about today?
Okay, the concept that we're going to refund today is that you can't pay yourself or you pay yourself last as a business owner, and we wholeheartly disagree.
Yeah.
So tell me how you pay yourself? How did you figure that out when you started your brand?
I knew that it would be really hard to start paying myself if I didn't start paying myself from the beginning. I knew that it was going to be really hard to start paying myself down the road if I didn't initially budget for that within how I was structuring my numbers.
Ding, ding, ding. Do you hear that? You have to think about it first because it's harder to backtrack than to plan for it.
And
right?
I actually remembered that. I think probably my dad was very pay yourself first when I got my first corporate job.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that was
Great
in the
advice.
form of contributing to my 401k, which I maxed out, and I had a company match at Target when I was at Target. And then I put, I want to say, another 10% into a liquid savings account, and the rest of it probably went to my checking account to pay for shots at the bar because I was 22 or whatever.
Dollar shots.
Right. And so the concept of paying myself first was one that had been kind of driven into me. I remembered learning about that in a basic finance class in college. And I thought, if I don't structure this into my business model, into my pricing structure, it will be so hard to increase my prices enough to pay myself what I want to make. And I left a corporate job with a very pleasant salary and cushy benefits, and those are really hard things to walk away from.
Yes.
And I knew that I wanted to get back to that point within the same amount of time that I was at that point in my corporate career. So within 5 years, should I just say what I was making?
Yeah, we should. I think we
that.
should. Okay, in general, I think we should talk about money.
Yeah.
Because then women learn from each other, and we shouldn't feel bad. We've all been there when someone says what they're making, and then they're like, "Oh my God!" It should be more of an awakening of, "Oh, I'm worth more," or "Oh, I should be showing my value, or already showing my value and being compensated for my value." I think we should talk about money.
Okay, I'll say.
Yeah.
So I had worked at my corporate career for 5 years. When I left, I was a manager. I had a team, and I was making $93,700 a year, or maybe $93,500.
Love an odd
Salary.
number. Love an odd number for salary.
So that was pre-tax.
Oh, so it's probably 60.
It was $5,000.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
after I voted to pay more for taxes.
It was $5,000. Yeah.
I made $5,000. No, so my salary was 93, whatever.
Yep.
And I was in my early 20s at that point, or my late 20s at that point, which was really great.
That's great to be close to 6 figures before you're 30. Again, it's if that's important to you, great. But just even understanding this is how much I was making. Now, how do I repeat that with my business or get close to that?
And so I had arbitrarily kind of decided in my head within 5 years of running my business, I wanted to be able to pay myself that much money.
Awesome. Great goal. Look at.
And I do.
Ding, ding, ding.
And I do. And that is something that I was really, 2 things. I'm not a numbers person. We know this. No, so numbers, I was scarred again by my father, who with his red pen at the dining room table was marking up my math homework.
Red,
it's super scary. We talked about red in our branding episode.
Yep.
It's an aggressive color.
Psychology,
and so numbers are something that I instantly get very, very uncomfortable with. And I'm very smart, but I have so much just probably ridiculous fear in that space. Math was always hard for me, even though I was always in the highest levels of math. I'm clearly competent, but I have a lot of other stuff happening. And so I completely had miscalculated when my goal was within 5 years of business to pay myself my salary. I completely had forgotten that salary was before taxes.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. That's so my
take
there's a
home,
before and an after taxes.
And in business, I pay my taxes in an estimated quarterly tax payment.
And it's more. It's there. That's a huge difference between a company taking care of it and it just being a nice little number that's pulled every 2 weeks.
You just don't know what's happening.
Yes. Yeah.
Here, I'm writing actively a check every quarter that I'm like, oh my, again, I voted for this. I gotta do it, Uncle Sam.
Yes, and you have to be accountable to it, and it's estimated because you're hoping that you make that, and if you make more, that number is more, and you start to have a reality moment where you're like, oh, what I thought I wanted actually needs to be higher if I want to take that home.
So, but I did the opposite. I was goaling myself to 93 as if it was my take home when I never took home $93,000. So less than 5 years, I was matching my salary.
Amazing.
And I never thought about it that way. But anyway, good for me.
I was just going to say that is best case scenario. And again, like that is one amazing that you had a family member that said, pay yourself first. Like that is something I wish I would have heard. I felt like I had to work so hard and I felt like I had to fight so hard to get more money. And I always felt like I had to constantly prove that I was worth more money. And I mean, out of college, I was making $35,000 a year and working my ass off. And I'm such a hard worker.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2015.
Okay. I graduated in 2009, and out of college, I made 48.
Yeah. I mean, like that. And that's probably comparable to, and the market had crashed too.
Yes,
so you were probably
tanked.
in a different time, like, inflation, depending on where you worked, the type of company. But I remember making nothing.
And I made more than most of my friends at that time.
Which is wild, because to live off $48,000 just on your own, depending on your city, is really challenging. And I felt like I constantly, I always felt like money was a secret, especially in the agency space that I worked in, corporate America. Like, it always felt like a secret. And I always feel like, why is it a secret? And I always felt shame around it. And I think there's so many resources about like your money story, how you view money. It's a lot of things you can unpack in therapy. Highly recommend it.
I want to put a pin in this thought really quick right here. That's the first thing I did when I started my business. And I think it served me really well. I had a ton of fear around money.
Yes.
I was very afraid because I left this incredible career that had built a beautiful life for my husband and I, and it was cushy and comfortable. We didn't own a house. We didn't have kids.
Yeah.
We just got to use that money for whatever we wanted. We had great savings. I put it to a 401k.
Yeah.
And I left that comfort. And that terrified me. I was really afraid that I wasn't going to be able to afford the lifestyle that I had lived and that I wanted to continue living. And I'm grateful that I quickly realized that fear was starting to debilitate me.
Yep.
I was bringing that negative energy into sales calls. I was bringing that negative energy into conversations around my business. And I think that became palpable to the people around me of like, what is this chick doing?
And then you question your own worth.
Then I'm questioning my worth. It's a toxic mindset to be in if you have money fear.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to interrupt because you brought up like, talk about it in therapy, work through it. I read 2 books that really helped me.
Okay, what are they?
How to Think and Grow Rich.
Awesome.
Which it's written by a white man for white men. So just, you need to know that. But it's really one of the first, like, he talks kind of about, the concepts he's talking about are kind of like manifestation.
Interesting.
And I thought that was fascinating. So he talks a lot about mindset. So he worked with like the Carnegies, the Rockefellers. Like this is, again, old money. What were they like in railroads?
Probably.
Whatever they were in.
Yeah.
Like old white men's club when they all got rich together back when we were building our country.
Yep.
Back when the white men were building our country. And left everyone out and kept all the money for themselves.
Correct.
This man wrote this book for those people. And I was like, listen, if this worked for them, I want to read it and apply it to my money mindset.
Yes.
And so I really enjoyed that book, but you do have to just remember who it was written for, and instead of being upset about that, be like, fuck you, I'm going to take those ideas for myself.
How do you translate
How do you adopt it?
How do you just translate it so that you can
have
feel
you
like
read
you
it?
have information? No, but I'm going to add it to my list.
Yes, add it to your list. It's a good one. And I listened to it. The other book I read was You Are a Badass at Making Money.
Oh, I love her. She's great.
Jen Sincero.
Yes, she's great. You Are a Badass. Like, she has a series of books.
Yes.
The financial one is fantastic. Like, very, very good.
It just helped me realize, like, if I don't think I'm worth making money, nobody else is going to think I'm worth
Ding, ding, ding.
Worth it. And they're not going to pay me. And I was like, I am not in this to make nothing. I'm not in this to be a victim to my business. I'm not in this to sacrifice my life away. So I have to get my mindset locked up, and then I can proceed.
Absolutely.
So I had to interrupt when you were talking about things to do to help with that money mindset.
It's the first step, is like unpacking, how do you view money? What's your relationship with money, personally, professionally, with your significant other?
And like you said, we don't talk about money societally, which is why the data is showing clearly things that we've already known. Women are paid less for comparable jobs. Women of color are paid less for comparable jobs.
Yep.
It's
we get less funding. Like, anything that the financial system was, we're not allowed to have money, is the idea that you return, is that, and if we want money, that's a bad thing, which I totally disagree with.
You're
believe,
selfish, you're self-centered, you're narcissistic. That's just not true.
And I think, and I hear this all the time from women-owned businesses, it's like women always put their money back into the community. It's never just, I want money so that I can buy a yacht. I mean, which sounds fun.
I do want money to buy a yacht.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But
and I want money to invest in other small female entrepreneurs.
Yes.
I want money to help communities that need it. There's a lot of reasons I want money. A yacht is just a part of it.
That's one arm of it. But who cares what you want to do with your money? It's just the narrative that we've been told. Well, you can't have it because your sole role in this society is to do one thing, and that is to, like, bear children, and which, again, is fine if you want to do that. But I believe women should have options.
100%.
And we should also have financial freedom and be able to make our own choices and play in our economy, because even in the past few years, like, women-owned businesses are driving so much money into our economy that the trend just is going to continue to go up. But we can't help each other if we don't talk about money, and we don't talk about what we're making, and be honest about, oh, hey, I feel like I'm not making enough money, or hey, how do I make sure that I can hire somebody and pay them appropriately so I have the right team? And so with my consulting business, JDP Consult, I do this a lot with women-owned businesses because I'm passionate about women making what they deserve. And part of what I do is helping them do a cost analysis of, what is it costing you to operate your business? And can you afford to pay yourself? What do you need to do to pay yourself? And you're allowed to pay yourself. And the numbers aren't scary. I like to think your numbers are one story of your entire brand, just like your branding is one story, your financials are another story, and no one's expecting you to learn how to set up a spreadsheet, but know enough that you can hire somebody to help you. And
which is how I manage
which is
my
so
numbers.
Smart. Elevate and delegate. Elevate to the people you want in your world, and then, like, all you have to do then is look at the numbers and make decisions.
Yep, exactly.
You can look
and that's what we do.
Yes.
Hey, how's this quarter looking? What are our projections looking like?
Yes.
Somebody, Tiff, pulls that together and gives it to me.
Says, hey, here's
and we
what's
discuss
happening.
it, and we talk about, okay, are we meeting our goals? Are we not? Are we exceeding our goals? How can we use this as one data point in the business to help us make strategic decisions moving forward?
It's one part of the story, and I think goal setting and forecasting is so important, to your point, where it's like, look at the next year, 3-year, 5-year, and I think set lofty goals, because women usually hit their goals. I love Shark Tank. That's actually how I pitched my investors, was I learned how to negotiate by watching.
Shark Tank styled?
I totally Shark Tank styled them, and Kevin O'Leary, who's the bald dude, Mr. Wonderful, he's like the numbers guy.
Yeah.
He will typically only invest in women businesses because women will always hit their goals.
Yeah.
They always exceed their goals because we undervalue, or like, we'll set a goal here, but we always exceed it.
Right.
So I always say, like, set lofty goals, because you'd be so surprised how quickly you would hit it. And I've let go of the notion of, oh, I don't know if I should be charging that much. And to your point, I was like, this is the value I bring as a consultant, and the prices are going up, the fees are going up. You want the best, you have to pay for the best.
Yeah.
And that's the business model. And now I tell women, like, I worked in corporate America for a year, and I'm close to doubling what I made a year out of it, because I decided this is what I'm worth, this is what I can deliver, obviously knowing your capacity and what you can deliver on, but I am doing that on my own. And then every month, like, outside of what I'm taking into the business, everything else is going back into the business. So I don't need additional funding for my consulting business. I've mapped it out that I can afford to just be me and maybe hire some people.
Yeah.
And that's just starting with just creating a forecast, just creating a plan that says, this is what I want to make.
Yes.
Now, can I get there realistically?
That's how I did my planning too, is I worked backwards. And I started really modestly. I have only contractors on my team. I don't have employees, full-time employees, so I don't run payroll. They invoice me, I pay their invoices, and then I just transfer money from my business bank account to my personal bank account for my pay weekly. And I started small. I think I started at like maybe $200 a week was kind of my first when I decided to regularly pay myself on a Friday.
Yeah.
And I would just set up an automatic transfer and move $200. And then I was feeling like, okay, well, I'm raising my business prices. I have no overhead. I just have a laptop, right? We talked about that in another episode. I want freedom and flexibility to move and work wherever I want. So I don't have an office. I don't have a ton of equipment. I don't need a lot of stuff to run my business because that aligns with how I want my life to look.
Lifestyle. That's part that should go into when you're forecasting how much you want to make.
Absolutely it should.
Lifestyle is a huge one.
And one of my goals was to make what I made by year 5 in business, full-time in business, which is this year, to make what I made 5 years in at my corporate job. And so I just started really small and transferred that money regularly. And then, a couple months later, I think I increased it to $250 a week, which isn't a lot of money. And when I could, because cash flow isn't always stable when you're a business owner, let's be real. Like there's risk. You talked about in retail, Q4, you're like, I'm rolling in dough.
Feast and famine
Q1,
industry.
all of a sudden you're like, I have nothing. Right?
I'm planning for Christmas again.
It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
So when I had an injection of cash into the business, I would take like a bonus check or I'd pull money because I could afford more money. So I wasn't only paying myself $250 a week, but that's how it started. And I just slowly started increasing that. I think from there I went to $500, then $750, then $1,500, and now I pay myself $2,000 a week.
Amazing.
Plus any time I can take an extra cash lump sum. Bonus check time.
Yeah, you got to check it with the boss, aka yourself, and you're like, hey.
She likes to write herself checks.
So I think when you think about, paying yourself, so there's the forecasting, there's the thinking about like, what do you want for your business? That's going to impact how much you should bring in, pay yourself, pay your team, and then there's always the discussion about funding. Do I need funding? How do I get funding?
Yeah.
One, funding's hard for women to get in general, as we talked about.
I believe the latest statistic I just read about we're going to fact check this. Remember how I talked about numbers? I think 1.8% of funding goes to people of venture capital funding goes to people of color and women. Split between people of color, including men of color and women.
Less than 1%, like it's something insane.
It's terrible.
It's a horrible
And we're
percentage.
talking about trillions of dollars that get invested.
Yes. Yeah, it's
and women
insanity.
and people of color get less than 2%.
And we hit our goals and we have a higher return on our investments, which we could fact check, but my gut is saying yes. But I think when it comes to what kind of funding you need, it always starts with what's the end goal? What are you trying to do? The impact of if you have VC funding, you have equity you're giving up, you have to have a faster return on your investments. If you go the grant route, that's something that is a kind of short-term cash infusion. If you get a loan, like they're all different avenues. There's not one right way. The ultimate goal is why do you need the money?
Yep.
Start there. And money, more problems. We've heard that. But money can help you scale your business. It can help you hire your first employee. But you have to figure out, do you need the additional funding and where are you putting that money?
Yeah.
Because I feel like funding is not a one size fits all. I get that question
agree.
all the time. And it's like, you have to know your numbers.
And you've experienced both. You're self-funding this brand, JDP Consulting. And you got funding for Mend. I think this is a whole other episode where we need to dive into investing specifically.
Yes, it's and there is no one size fits all. And the most important thing before you even go to whether or not I need an investor or a grant, like start with your numbers, know your numbers.
Our takeaways, know your numbers.
Which means you pay yourself first. Nobody works for free.
Nobody works for free.
Ain't nobody working for free.
You're way too cool to not be paying yourself.
Pay yourself today, immediately, and pay your staff. I think you need to pay people fairly. Everybody gets compensated differently, but talk about money.
I think that's
money. And
Number
then
two.
I was going to say set lofty goals. Don't be afraid to tell people for me, in the next 5 years, I want to make $500,000.
Yeah.
$500,000. It's just me, maybe an assistant.
That's my goal too.
Yeah. So we just put it out into the universe, and in the next 5 years, hopefully sooner.
You know what else? This is a full circle moment. Last night we had dinner with someone who makes $500,000 a year.
Wow. Yeah. So we're
just bringing in that juju. Go her, right? Go her.
Also an incredible woman that was telling, and she was like, "Do I tell you?" And we're like, "Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us. Put that out there because we're gonna
And
keep
we were
each
just
other
all
accountable."
we were just clapping and excited. There was
Yes.
no we weren't like.
I was
that's so dumb.
I looked at her and I was like, "You should be making more."
Yeah, we were like, "Fuck yeah, girlfriend, go for the millie."
Yes, and then what happens is then you're surrounded by women who keep you accountable, and then you hit that $500,000, and then you throw a party on your yacht.
We're returning the idea that you
Can't pay yourself, and that
you
you
can pay yourself
shouldn't
as a
pay
business
yourself first, and that's not selfish. And I would love to hear whether it's on Instagram via just commenting. Tell us what your goals are.
Love that.
I'd love to know how much you want to make.
Let's have an open, public-facing conversation about this because
Absolutely.
nothing bad happens when we have these conversations.
Absolutely.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Follow us, subscribe on YouTube. You can find us on all of the places that you love to listen to your podcasts. You can
We're
find
going
us
to
on
link
the
to the
socials.
books that we've mentioned. There's a couple books, and there's a couple other ones, good financial books you should listen to.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, I'd love to know what you want to make in the next 5 years.
I love
and
that.
we would
That's
love
fun.
to have you
Let's talk about it.
share. And then you'll probably hit those goals and exceed them.
Sure.
If I'm guessing, we probably will.
Cheers to you. Making that money.
Cheers.